What's up, everyone? Welcome back once again to the Football Goons podcast. We're glad to have you aboard and just as happy that the NFL season is here. Look, after a handful of scrimmages this Thursday night, let's be honest, we're finally going to be getting to some real NFL football. And with that in mind, we wanted to go ahead and give you our 2018 NFL predictions. We'll cover all of the important topics from the division winners to the Super Bowl matchups and the MVPs and just about everything in between here for the next hour. But before we get started, we wanted to take a second here to touch on something and really speak from the heart for a second and just thank everybody who's been a loyal listener, a loyal member of the Goon Squad for so long to this point. This is episode number 125 tonight. We have had a ton of great support from everybody out there listening, from those watching on YouTube each and every week. For the third or fourth consecutive month now, we've shattered our download record, and that's all made possible because of you, our loyal listeners. And we just wanted to take a second here and just kind of speak from the heart and just say thank you. 125 episodes, everything I've ever heard was that it was going to take 100 to 150 before you really start to kind of take off. And I feel like we're there, and we just want to take a second here. And I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in and just say thank you to everybody who's been listening.
Yeah, I mean, you crushed it. That's exactly what I think any of us would say. I mean, we've been loyal. We committed to it once a week, and it was tough until the ball got rolling. But now, I mean, it's just a blast knowing that we're out here, our words getting heard. Questions are coming in. We're helping out people. It's just kind of fun that we get to share something that we love and help out other people while we're doing it, albeit fantasy football is not the most important thing in the universe, but it is a nice welcome distraction. So I'm always happy to help. And I think it's awesome that people are tuning in, giving us a shot, sharing the word all the way in like Zimbabwe, right? I mean, we're huge in like Chad.
I have a cult following in Scandinavia.
Listen, I know the other three will agree with me when I say this, but we have continually said that we would talk about this stuff whether anybody listened or not, because that's what we love to do, and we love spending time with each other in that regard. So the fact that
like three of us love spending time with three of us.
Yeah.
Okay, here I am trying to be sentimental. But anyway, we would do this anyway. But the fact that, thousands of people download us every month, it means a lot to us, and we appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, and listen, we got to keep the momentum going. We need your help to keep spreading the word, because this is kind of a groundswell thing. This is basically a startup as much as a startup gets. We do have some great sponsors, as you could see by our awesome new backdrops now, if you're watching live, who help us out a little bit. But this is all just us by word of mouth. So we need your continued support to share the word on social media. Tell a friend who will tell a friend who will tell another friend. So, we appreciate to keep that going. All right, guys, we're going to jump into things here tonight and get right into some of our predictions. We're going to start with the division champions and the wild cards. And look, we kind of touched on this a little bit over the last two podcasts where we previewed the AFC and the NFC specifically. But that was 2-3 weeks ago, and some things changed, some injuries happened, some acquisitions are made, some players, might look a little differently in systems and things like that. So let's just start it out. Let's go across the board here, and I'll just throw it out. Give me your AFC division winners, a recap of just the division winners and what might have changed.
I did have one change, actually, from 2 weeks ago, the AFC pod. I had the Bengals winning the AFC North. I now have Steelers there. Just some schedule changes, some things I've seen that I liked out of Pittsburgh. So I have Patriots, Steelers, Titans, and Chargers winning the AFC divisions.
I went in order, 1 through 4, where I think they're going to wind up seed-wise. I went Chargers, Jags, Pats, and Steelers. That's the same as I have. I did go back through it and look at it and take more things into consideration when I actually, played out a whole schedule. And I did have some changes, but nothing really affected the top of these divisions for me.
Yeah, I don't think I had a whole lot of change. If any, I still have the Pats, the Steelers. I have the Jaguars in a real tight one. Honestly, they have the same record as the Texans. It just comes down to a tiebreaker where they win the division. And then I have the Raiders winning a tiebreaker over the Chargers as well in the West. Yeah, we're having a hard time here in Deal. So while he gets that figured out, let's just jump right into the NFC.
Hey, before we get into that, I want to talk Titans Jags.
Yeah, let's talk it.
I mean, I know that. So it's hard when we do predictions because I know personally, I think I only have 2 new playoff teams versus last year's playoff teams. And that's like never a thing. There's always 5 to 6 new ones. And it's really hard to logically predict which team is going to change and which team's going to jump or fall. Do you guys think that I'm nuts with the Titans thing? I mean, can we see – do you guys think Jacksonville's that good that division's kind of locked up?
Without getting too much into our own what we're going to talk about here in a couple of seconds, I think that division is not locked up by the Jaguars. I still think they're the best team in that division. And by best team, listen, we all know how important the quarterback position is, and we need to get at least the same out of Blake Bortles this year as last year. But if all 3 of those teams play at their best, I think all 3 of them are playoff teams. I mean, that they're all that good. I personally will take their defense into consideration here and then vault them above, because when a play needs to be made on the defensive side of the ball, they're the team that's going to make it out of those 3. That's just my opinion. And as much as we talked about last year where offense really led the way in the playoffs, when a play needed to be made defensively, we trusted the Eagles to make it more than the Patriots. You know what I mean? And they did, and that's why they won. And that's kind of how I feel about this division. So I wind up taking the best defense, not because I think defense wins, matters the most, but because they're the ones I trust the most.
Gotcha. I think for me, the addition of Matt LaFleur, the Titans' offense has weapons, and they just haven't been using them because they've been stuck in the Stone Age on offense. And I just kind of think with Mariota now opening up, Corey Davis in his second year, you got the 2-headed backfield still. I like Delaney Walker. They have options at receiver behind Corey Davis too. And then when you have a guy like Harold Landry coming in on defense, that changes things there too. Plus Malcolm Butler comes in to go with Logan Ryan. So the secondary is excellent. I think the defense is actually really underrated and really close to what Jacksonville brings. But this offense is definitely overall better than Jacksonville's, in my opinion.
Am I working now?
You're in.
Yeah.
Back and better than ever. I'm back and better. I'm back and as good as ever. All right. So let's go back to mine then. Since I want to disagree with all of you, I got Steelers, Colts, Patriots, Chiefs.
Well, I don't see it with the Chiefs, man.
Fair enough.
Oh, that was it. I thought you were going to give me some kind of.
I actually heard a really good debate in favor of the Chiefs today. And it's not that I don't believe it. The Chiefs. My issue with the Chiefs is I feel like everything has to go seamlessly, and they have a lot of talented pieces, but I don't see it all going seamlessly with a first-year starter. Not rookie quarterback, but a first-year starter in Mahomes. I think there's going to be growing pains.
I will say this: I have the Chiefs, the Chargers, and the Raiders all going 10-6, and all 3-3 in the division.
Okay.
So it's all down to a tiebreaker.
Pretty tight race, tiebreaker.
Yeah.
I think they're going to miss Marcus Peters so much.
I agree.
I think there was too much changeover in their secondary specifically. That's really hard to combat when you're going to play against a revamped Raiders offense now. The Chargers are even better. I think Mike Williams is going to come on strong. So it's going to be hard to make up for that, to be quite honest.
The Broncos' passing game is going to be quite immensely better.
Yep, I only have them one game back at 9-7.
That's I guess both of those guys and the South I think are really, really tight divisions.
Yeah, I have both of those divisions grouped real tight as well. So I mean, I could see it really going anyway. This is just kind of my gut feeling right now on August 28th. So
yep.
Just real quick here, we want to acknowledge YouTube question came in while we're talking AFC. Jay Lau chiming in. We know our guy here. He is a Jets fan, so he's got to get his Jets question in. Although unlikely, who has more of a chance to make the playoffs this year and why? Browns or Jets?
Actually, I actually think it's Jets, even though I think overall the Browns might have a better roster, top to bottom. And it's funny, we're picking on Michael Kendrick saying the Browns have more talent than the Eagles. I don't think that's as crazy as a comment
When you
as it may
pick
come off.
when you
They're
pick
not- they
top
got
5
like-
every
yeah.
year.
They got like 35 top 5 picks on their team. So I think the Browns might be better, though I do think the Jets are a better team than they were. Browns are better than Jets, but Jets are still nice. But Jets definitely have less competition in the division.
Yeah.
There's a chance they get swept by the Patriots and still go 4-2 in the division, which sets them up pretty nicely to compete for the wild card. And like we said, with the South and the West, nobody's going to be pulling away with the wild card there. This wild card, 10-6 is like beautiful in the AFC because there's so many teams at that same level. So I kind of clump the Jets in with those teams. I have the Browns a very, very clear third in their division.
Yeah, I agree, almost 100%. It's just they have a clearer path to win games
Right.
in their division. Their schedule is probably a little friendlier too, based on what I've seen. But
Yeah, even outside the division.
Yep.
Yeah.
Just their schedule across the board.
all right, so NFC division winners, and just a recap of kind of what may have changed over the last couple of weeks.
I have the same as I had last week. I have Eagles, Vikings, Falcons, and Rams winning those divisions.
I've got almost the same, except I do have the Packers
Because of
via
course.
a tiebreaker, taking that division. I think that honestly, like we kind of touched on this a little bit last week, but don't you think that it benefits them a little bit to play the lesser schedule? Having finished a little worse last year, when I look at their schedule, I think to myself, they benefit from, they don't have to play all these first place teams like the Vikings are going to have to. And I think that's really, after the Vikings and Packers most likely split home and home, that's probably the biggest factor for me.
I mean, to an extent, I get that, but like the schedule that they're going to play is identical to the Vikings, other than 2 games, and in those 2 games, they get the Falcons instead of the Saints. Is that really that big of a deal?
See, I don't think it is. I think Cowboys instead of Eagles is a big deal.
That's huge.
Yeah, but that's one game.
But
It's one game.
The way I would counter that is I think the Vikings are a clearly better team than the Packers, and they play twice head-to-head. That's a sweep for me.
Yeah, I mean, I have them both 11-5 for what it's worth. So, and it came down to tiebreakers. So
I don't. I actually have the Vikings a full game ahead. My 1 through 4 order again: Saints, Rams, Eagles, Vikings. I think all 4 of these teams are in the 12+ win category again, like we saw that last year. With this, all 4 of them were high in the win totals.
I had Vikings, Saints, Eagles, Rams.
So are you guys like me in that you have like this NFC South just insanely tight? I have 3 teams at double-digit wins in that division. Panthers obviously sneaking in there in 3rd place with 10 wins, and I actually have them not even making the playoffs. So
Yeah,
I actually
that's
have them
higher.
11-5.
Wow, that's higher on Carolina than I can be.
And honestly, that if that's how you feel, then you're going to hate mine. I have 11-5, 12-4, and 13-3 in the division. All 3 of them in the playoffs.
Wow.
I mean, I could see it happening.
Yeah. I mean, my comment is that when I break it game by game, I can't see it happening, but it very well. I mean, they're 3 really good teams.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, I feel like I had one of these situations, kind of like Rocco last year, where like I have so many top-heavy teams, and then everybody else is like a 4 or 5 win team.
Yep.
And it feels like when you look at it, like that can't really happen, can it?
I see, and I found it very interesting as I broke it down. I don't have like a lot of. I mean, I have a decent amount of teams with 5 wins. I was more so surprised with the amount of teams I have in like the 10+ wins than I was the teams I have at the bottom, because you're going to have bottom feeder teams, especially if you have so many teams at the top. But I think that there's such like it's like almost it's not what I noticed. It's not NFC versus AFC either. I think that just the teams at the top are so much clearly better that even when you try and break it down game by game and you try and factor in buys and I mean, if you just take the better team in the better situation, you're gonna wind up with top heavy conferences like records and whatnot. It doesn't balance out properly. There's too many really good teams right now that are 10+ win teams and playoff ready.
So, since you mentioned that, I'll go first. But how many teams do you have with at least 10 wins? I have 14 teams with at least 10 wins, and then I have 3 more that are at 9 and 7.
16.
16. Wow.
I only have 12. I'm sorry, I only have 10. 10 of my playoff teams.
Wow.
That's it. I had 2 wild card teams at 9 and 7.
I have 13 teams with 10 wins or more.
Wow, right behind me.
Yeah.
I think not, and not, I'll just explain kind of myself, not saying that it's better or whatever. I spent an unrealistic amount of time doing this, and like I actually picked some realistic, crazy upsets because I like the way the matchup broke for the worst team. So
Right.
I think, I mean, we see that. You know, I mean, we're never going to see 16 teams with 10+ wins. It's
Right.
just not going to happen.
Team traveling across the country after a bye week, stuff like
exactly. I think there's a situation where I can't remember off the top of my head, something like Rams in Tampa or something, and I have Tampa winning that game. And I think the week before the Rams play somebody tough.
Yeah.
So it's like you're coming off that tough game
Get
across
beat
the
up.
country. I gave that to the Bucks. You know, if I'm gambling, am I picking the Bucks there? No. But in a situation like this, we see 30 of those games happen every year.
Right.
So I tried to nail some of them down just based on matchups.
Yeah, and that's a tough thing to do for anybody making predictions. So just keep that in mind to all of our listeners. But like, gun to your like, I think this is the way I kind of did it. Like, hey South, here you go, gun to my head.
Of course.
If I had to bet on who's winning this game straight, no line in play, no nothing like that, just who's the better team, you know.
Then of
even-
course you're gonna.
Yeah,
You're
of
gonna
course
end
you're
up with
gonna
a
wind up-
16-0. You're gonna end up with a 15-1.
Yeah.
You have to.
You have to. So like then I go from there, and then I start picking and choosing. Like, okay, well here's a potential upset. I'll give that because I'll be honest. I had 2 teams at 15-1. I'm like, okay, we're not gonna have 2 15-1 teams. So now where can we give these teams other losses? You know, and then that's how I broke it down.
I mean, I look at everything too, like, and like you're saying, Miles, I commented on this earlier. I just had a really hard time, even when I look at a team who is coming off of a bye versus a team who maybe even had a short week. Like, it's hard to give a team like the Ravens the bump over a better team, even in that regard. Like, you know, it's possibly going to happen, but logically, you can't look at that and say, like, all right, they're coming off of a bye, they're probably going to knock the Steelers off.
Right.
I like a lot of instances I couldn't do it. I mean, there were times that I could. That's how, you know, some of these teams got a couple wins just from, you know, kind of stealing one in a situation like that, a team coming off of a short week or whatever. But, you know, I get what you're saying there, though. All right, so real quick here, let's touch on this. Just give me your AFC wild cards and, you know, how close was it?
Yeah, I kept Jacksonville in since I had Tennessee winning that division, and I bumped Cincinnati down as my second wild card. Cincinnati was my 9 and 7. They made it just ahead of. I had the Colts. I had the Raiders at 8 and 8. So those were my just outside looking in teams.
I have the Titans and Texans. I have the Titans at 11 and 5. The Texans, Raiders, and Chiefs all at 10 and 6. Texans got in with the tiebreakers.
I have Chargers and Raiders. So I got 3 teams from the West going. Chargers and Raiders both at 10 and 6. Like I said, I have all 3 of them at 10 and 6.
Yeah, I have the Texans and the Chargers. It's close. The Titans are just a game behind. Then the Colts are just a game behind that, missing out. The Chiefs at 9 and 7 just missed out as well. I think that some of those teams that are just on the bubble are just not quite as good as the teams that I have going in. So same thought process with the NFC wildcards.
I have the Packers and the Falcons. I got the Packers only making a wild card at 12 and 4, and then I have the Falcons at 11 and 5.
I have the Panthers and Falcons making it again. 11 and 5, 12 and 4, and then just missing. I have the Packers at 11 and 5, and the Lions at 10 and 6.
I have the. How's this for a quick turnaround how high some people are on teams. I have the Saints as the first wild card, 12 wins, lose the tiebreaker to the Falcons in the division for the division. And then I have the Vikings 11-5 as my second. They lose the tiebreaker to the Packers. The Panthers miss out on the playoffs with 11 wins.
Oh,
Sickening.
imagine that as the team obviously, but as a fan, like imagine your team goes 11-5 and you're watching Wild Card Weekend. Like I'm mad enough if my team goes 11-5 and is playing on Wild Card Weekend, let alone misses it entirely. That said, I also have the Saints, so we're 4 for 4 there, and I have Detroit as my second wild card. I really like what the Lions have done. I think I just couldn't convince myself to stick the same 6 teams in the NFC. So
that was the hardest part for me. Is like we know that there's always turnaround, and yet somehow I can't pick against these teams.
And I think versus most years, I feel like especially the top teams in the NFC improved. They didn't even just rest on their laurels; they got better. Yeah. So it's so hard to predict which one's going to go 8-8. Like I can't. You can't convince me. It could happen. It probably will. I'm not going to pick one of them. But I do want to throw this out there. I actually had, until last week, I had the Cowboys as my other NFC wild card. But this Travis Frederick and Zach Martin news, they're a mess when the line's not right. And I think Dallas's defense is actually going to be really sneaky good. But the offense is going to struggle without their top-tier linemen. So I had to bump them down for Detroit.
Yeah, I think they've invested nicely in the defense and added some key pieces, and I think their secondary will probably be better than we realize. But I just think that if they get a couple games behind early on while they're trying to get their guys up front healthy, you could be in trouble. And for as much as I do think their defense is going to be good, I do think it takes a couple games to click. So, that's where, they're going to kind of trip up in my opinion. So you mentioned the Lions. I have them as a 9-win team as well. I would not be surprised at all if they were better than that and were a playoff team. They're just one of those teams that is just solid. They're well coached, and you can trust Matthew Stafford to keep them competitive. So,
how do you guys feel about me not including the Niners in this?
I'm shocked. I think you forgot how to click their logo or something on the predictor site.
I could have sworn.
If we get to the Super Bowl champion, you still say 49ers. I'm going to be so irritated.
Yeah, it's going to be Jaguars and Niners.
I have them at 9-7, just for the record. I have them as a much improved team, just not there yet.
All right, let's talk about some individual awards. And we're going to kind of jump around a little bit here because, once the playoffs come, during the playoffs and toward, we get closer to the Super Bowl, we get some of the individual awards announced. So we wanted to kind of follow that theme with the agenda here. So give me the NFL offensive and defensive rookies of the year for 2018.
I'll start with my offensive one. This is a quarterback award. It's going to be Sam Darnold, quarterback of the New York Jets. I had to get in there before Rocco said it, so it's not entirely a homer pick, but listen, I said I had the Jets at 8-8, just missing the wild card by 1 game. I mean, if he's the quarterback for all 16, which, good God, why wouldn't he be? I mean, I like Teddy Bridgewater, but you took him third. Play him. It's a quarterback award. If the Jets go 8-8, that's a huge improvement. I like Sam to be good enough with the ball to get it to a lot of good playmakers. They don't have Julio Jones, but as we've covered on the pod before and we heard, they're the only team ever to have 4 800-yard receivers on the roster at the same time. You can spread the ball around there in New York. So I think he's going to do that. He's going to get his team right there in the playoff mix. I think Royce Freeman and Saquon Barkley are going to get a ton of volume. They're both going to be on pretty solid teams. I would pick Royce over Saquon, honestly, because of touchdown numbers. That's just me. I think he's on a better offense. But ultimately, as we saw just 2 years ago, Ezekiel Elliott was 100 times better player than Dak Prescott. And the quarterback wins this award. If a quarterback plays 16, he's going to win it. So I'm going Sam Darnold.
I wanted to preface this by saying that I believe Saquon Barkley should win this award. I think he's going to be the most dynamic and excitable player in this rookie class. I think he's a special back, and I think all of us would agree. But I agree with what Miles said. This is a quarterback award. Ezekiel Elliott should have won it 2 years ago, and yet they gave it to Dak. Because if a quarterback makes the leap in year 1 as a rookie to get a team close to the playoffs or in the playoff mix, doesn't throw a ton of interceptions and put some yardage and touchdown numbers on the board, they're going to give it to him. So I agree. I think it's going to be Sam.
Yeah, I'll be 3 for 3 here. I said Sam Darnold as well. Yeah, for the same reasons. They're not going to give it to another position.
Yeah, I get what you guys are saying, but I just feel like this is kind of one of those weird years where unless there's an injury, I can't really predict that because I'm not sure yet what the Jets are going to do. It seems like, yes, they're going to start Sam Darnold, but you have a really stubborn head coach.
Pay attention.
You have a really stubborn head coach. You know what I mean? So, like, he may just stick to his laurels and say, like, hey, we don't start a rookie. We have a guy who knows the offense. You know, we can kind of ease him into this thing. By all accounts, Baker Mayfield is not going to start the season. I think it would have been a lock if he was going to. I think he'll play at some point. Will it be enough to win the award? I don't know. I'm going really outside the box here just because last year I feel like nobody really saw Alvin Kamara coming along in this thing. I'm going with Kerryon Johnson.
Love it.
Detroit. Look, I think he's going to get enough volume, and people are worried about LeGarrette Blount kind of vulturing some of those goal line carries or whatever. I don't really see that happening. I just don't. I feel like Kerryon Johnson early on is going to kind of establish himself. He's a power back who also has a tendency to be shifty. It's what they've really been missing in the Detroit offense. They've talked all offseason about wanting to establish a running game. I think they finally have the guy to do it. I think he's going to put up really nice numbers in Detroit. I think he's your rookie of the year out of nowhere. How about on the defensive side of the ball? Is this as much of a slam dunk as it seems?
It better be. I'll lose respect.
It's not for me, so get ready to lose respect, I guess. Well, actually, I think it's a slam dunk, but it's not the guy you think it is.
All right, so you go first. I wanted to go first now.
So I have edge rusher, which is probably where you're leaning, but I have the Titans' Harold Landry. I already mentioned him earlier. I think he's an amazing addition. And as a second-round pick, that's lights out. Should have been a first-round pick easily. And all preseason, all you're seeing is this guy's incredible bend, getting around the edge, making plays like crazy. Like I said, I have the Titans winning the AFC South. And that's going to be in no small part to what he adds to that front seven of that defense. I think Landry's a slam dunk for double-digit sacks. And when you're a double-digit sack rookie on a division winner, you've got to win this award.
You don't think any of those are going to be on Andrew Luck, right?
No, Andrew Luck will be clean all year. 0 sacks on Andrew Luck.
That's what we need. That's what we need, sir.
First team All-Pro rookie safety, Derwin James. He is a special, special player. And that defense is going to be so much better than what it has been in the past, which is why I think the Chargers will be the 1 seed in the AFC. That I think he will be a noticeable difference to that defense.
I'm going Bradley Chubb. Like, I know it seems like too much of a no-brainer, but like he's going to play across from Von Miller in a defense who, you know, over the last couple of years has gotten after the quarterback a little bit, in case you haven't noticed.
Yeah, really.
The secondary is still pretty good, so there's a lot of coverage sack opportunities there. Plus, like, he's a man. Like, we're not talking about just kind of like a normal rookie here. We're talking about, like, when you look at him, like, this is a grown man coming in as a rookie. I think he's going to play right away. He's going to play effectively right away. I think he's going to pile up a whole bunch of sacks this year. So that's going to be enough to get him the award.
Yeah, I picked Bradley Chubb as well. And if it's not Bradley Chubb, if for some reason they're playing some weird shift, then Von Miller's going to break the single season sack record. So they can't block both of them.
All right, so let's talk about the NFL Coach of the Year. I think, in this circle, we were a little surprised by it last year. So who do we have winning Coach of the Year this year?
I do have Doug Peterson for the Eagles. I think, again, I try to do these awards largely on my predictions. And in my predictions, nobody made that leap. You know, the Rams went from terrible to awesome. So Sean McVay got that award. I don't really have anybody making that major leap and making the playoffs. As good as some of these turnarounds are going to be, we already mentioned the Jets. I think Cleveland's going to be a lot better. I don't think you can give the Coach of the Year award to a guy who goes 7-9, 8-8. So without an obvious candidate, and then you have an Eagles team that I have going 13-3, think you correct last year's mistake. I'm going to go ahead and call the league out on last year's mistake. If nobody else grabs the award, it has to be Peterson. And aside from that, the guy is changing the way the game is coached with his willingness to go for it on fourth downs, take big shots, try to kick a 61-yard field goal at the end of a game instead of throw a Hail Mary. He is making unconventional decisions, and it's making his team better than the talent on it. So it's not just a favor. He deserves it, and it's a favor.
I am very Chargers heavy here in this awards section of this. I think if the Chargers do what I think they can do, and they're going to be the number one seed in the AFC, then Anthony Lynn's going to get a lot of credit for that. They really turned the corner halfway through last year, just not soon enough to make the playoffs. But I think going from not in the playoffs to the number one seed in the AFC gives him a legitimate argument for that award.
Yeah, I actually picked Anthony Lynn as well, and basically for the same reasons you just said. But I only have them going one game better than they were last year. But I think in large part it's due to a lot of the additions they made and a lot of guys they have coming back healthy. But I think that he's going to do enough that he's going to win the award.
I don't really have a really great reason for this, but I have Dan Quinn of the Falcons, and I just think they're going to be a really efficient team this year. I have them as my top seed in the NFC this year. For them to come out as the top seed in that, jam-packed, really good division, I just think the offense is going to be really efficient. They're going to fix a lot of the things that, we have been griping about at them for the last couple of years. I think you're going to see his fingerprints all over this defense this year. We've been talking about how young and hungry that defensive unit is. I think we got a taste of it in the playoffs last year, and I think it really just kind of kicks into full gear this year. The whole entire unit, the whole entire team is just going to perform really well, and I think that'll be a credit to Dan Quinn this year.
We've been calling them hungry for like 2 years. Is that still a thing? I mean, at some point, aren't you like
this is the last year
aged hungry? All right, we can still do it. All right,
this is it. This is the last year. So South right down. You can't do it next year, man.
Yeah, I mean well, they just keep adding draft picks to the defense, so I don't know, they just keep retooling it. But yeah, I do get your point there. So we'll have to, go to intermediate hungry somehow. I don't know. We'll figure it out. NFL offensive defensive players of the year for 2018. I'll start with the offense. Who do you have?
Yeah, we had, as a group, we had 2 fantasy drafts this weekend live together. Anybody remember who I traded for in both leagues?
No, I want to forget.
David Johnson, running back of the Arizona Cardinals. I've been trying to keep this in as much as I could in this group. He's my number 1 overall fantasy player this year. David Johnson's proclaimed his goal to be 1,000 rushing, 1,000 receiving. Barring injury and on his offense, I don't see how he doesn't do it. His volume as a rusher, and that 1,000 running is a lock, again, barring injury. 1,000 receiving, I mean, Sam Bradford's your quarterback. You check down Sammy's the guy's nickname, and you might be the best receiving back in the entire league. I think 80 catches is a floor, and he's dynamic enough after the catch to turn 80 into 1,000 yards. Personally, I think Johnson eclipses 2,300 scrimmage yards, which puts him at a top 10 all-time scrimmage yard season and 16 touchdowns. This guy locks up the award easily with his all-purpose ability.
Along that same vein, I don't need to get into it all again because I've been talking about it for weeks. I'm going with Alvin Kamara just because I think it's a similar situation, just a better offense, honestly. I don't think when Mark Ingram comes back, he's going to take much away because he's such a good running back that you can't bring him off the field. He's going to catch a ton of passes in that offense. I detailed a couple weeks ago how the Saints have consistently been like the number 1 or number 2 team in the league at targets to their running back. You're not going to see a whole lot of those targets missed from Kamara. I think he's going to benefit for being the lead guy in the running game as well. So I'm not going as nuts with the stats. I already did say that I think he's RB1 this year, but I do think he's going to put up a ton of yardage.
Man, I hope we're both right because anybody remember who my other running back is in both of those leagues?
I don't want to talk about it.
That's Alvin Kamara.
We said we don't want to talk about it.
I want to talk about it. We got to do something I want to do for once.
All right, so I also went with David Johnson. My argument to go along with what Miles said, I just think that he's the best back with the largest share of his offense. I mean, I'm not going to go as far as saying, some of those numbers that Miles said, because then we'd be talking about legitimately, top 10 best seasons of all time. I'm not going to go there. That's a pretty bold prediction. But, we're talking about a guy who is going to get the largest chunk of his offense of any of the players that we're talking about here. And he's talented enough to do a lot with it.
So it seems logical that you traded him then.
Thank you. Thanks.
I also picked David Johnson. I have him in 0 leagues, sir. I don't care for that. But yeah, I mean, there's not much more argument you can make for him. He's one of the best in the league. He's going to have incredible volume, and he's going to get a load of receptions to go along with his ground yards. So,
all right, defensive player of the year. Who we got?
I'm gonna shock the world with this one. Should I go first or wait?
You should.
I'm gonna go with Khalil Mack, edge rusher for the Indianapolis Colts.
Oh my! I love it when you talk dirty to me.
You heard me right. Khalil Mack of the Colts. I think the Colts have the perfect. Now, there's about 5 teams that have the ammo with draft picks and with cap room to make this trade. And the Raiders dragging their feet this long. Odell just got paid. We're hearing Aaron Donald. We're close. There is no discussion with the Raiders and Khalil Mack. None. They have to pull this trigger. And I think the Colts get it done. And Rocco, you want Khalil Mack. The worst part for you is the Colts partially get it done with your draft picks from the Sam Darnold trade.
Yes.
But this trade, I think, gets done early next week. Matt comes in, starts learning the defense. Even without learning the defense, he's one of the 3 best defensive players in the entire league. I think he comes into Indy, makes Raiders fan complain all year en route to leading the league in sacks with 17.5 for the Colts.
Now that I know we got Khalil Mack, I want to change all my picks.
I should have told you earlier today.
Yeah,
Colts
man,
win the Super Bowl, right?
Colts win a Super Bowl. He's winning offensive and defensive MVP, Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year. He's winning it all. No, I hope that part's true, but I'm probably
deals like on tilt the whole rest of the podcast.
I can't focus.
Just thinking about what number Khalil Mack's going to wear.
Oh man, I picked Joey Bosa though, but for all the same reasons you said about Khalil Mack. Coming into his 3rd season, he's getting better every year. They're saying he's completely healthy now. I hope that's true for his sake, for the Chargers' sake, and for the sake of my argument. But I just don't see any way he doesn't get even better from what he's been doing the past 2 years, and is the defensive player of the year.
Joey Bosa is the guy that I think is going to lead the league in sacks, and therefore I have him as the defensive player of the year.
I'll make it 3 out of 4 on Bosa. We did something on the side earlier where I went Aaron Donald, and then when I was looking through things throughout this afternoon, I just changed my mind based on everything I'm reading, everything I'm seeing out there. I don't think he's even scratched the surface on as good as he can be in that defense. And I'll get into that a little bit later as well, but I think it's Joey Bosa. All right, so comeback player of the year. Just real quick here, we don't have to elaborate too much on this, but there were so many key players injured last year. Who wins comeback player of the year?
I mean, this should go fast because 3 of us should have the same answer. If
Probably
David
4.
Johnson wins offensive player of the year, he's definitely the comeback player of the year as well, right?
I have him there.
I actually don't. Even though I think David Johnson, my argument here is that I think that Carson's going to play with such a gigantic chip on his shoulder for having not been the quarterback that led them to a Super Bowl. I think we're going to see a great year out of Carson Wentz. I really do.
Do you think he missed enough of the season that they would give him the comeback?
I don't think so. I mean, Luck, yeah. Rodgers, maybe. Carson played 13 games.
I actually had Rodgers, and then I thought, I don't think they'll give it to him because he played enough.
Played half a season.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right.
And not to destroy your pick, I hope you're right.
I'll let him be right if I can have Khalil Mack.
All right. Well, listen. Let's give you a chance to get some of that shine back here. Who is the NFL MVP for 2018?
Go ahead, Rocco.
All right. So I don't think that my predictions go the way they go without this player having a very average season for him, but it's a guy that often gets overlooked. But if the Chargers are going to win the AFC West and become the number 1 seed, I like Phillip Rivers to finally get some recognition and win league MVP.
That's not where I was wanting you to go there, but I'll accept it.
Okay.
Listen, it's Carson Wentz, because I don't believe he's going to miss time this year. I just don't. I know that there's some talk out there that they may play it conservative, keep him out of this Thursday opener, maybe wait until week 3 against the Colts to bring him back just to kind of baby it along. I think he's ready. I think that he's going to be cleared. I think that he's going to have no reservations. And from all accounts, once he's cleared, this staff is not going to have any reservations on it, because they're the kind of team that absolutely, relies heavily on what their doctors tell them. And they've had a good track record with it as well. So if he's ready to go, I don't see any reason he doesn't pick back up where he left off last year. Just putting up really great numbers, being the clear-cut best quarterback in the NFC, in my opinion.
I actually have Phillip Rivers as well. I mean, I'm with Rocco. I have the Chargers as the number 1 seed in the AFC. Contrary to you, South, I do think Wentz is going to miss a couple weeks. And we just saw last year they're not going to give him MVP missing a couple weeks. I think he's going to have a great season. But Phillip Rivers, like Rocco said, if everything goes the way I'm predicting, Rivers is going to have to be a monster. So I'm going with him. Second place, Keenan Allen. Third place, Melvin Gordon.
You might as well give 4th place to Joey Bosa.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I picked Aaron Rodgers. I can't ever pick against him. It's still a quarterback, like you said about the offensive rookie of the year. This is still a quarterback award. I would love to see Rivers get it, but they're going to give it to the quarterback that has the least around him and has the best stats in the league. So I can't pick against Aaron Rodgers for that.
All right, let's take a quick pause here. You guys watching on YouTube have seen all night that we've got some awesome new backdrops for the show here. And our sponsors, they take good care of us. And we don't align ourselves with anybody that we do not believe in. And we believe in Gorb. That's the hashtag GHORBH. Get hungry or be hungry is the motto. You can check them out at gorb.com. I'm encouraging you to go there because you know what I thought about today? All this talk is out there. It's pumpkin spice season and all these different lattes are out there. And take that or leave it for me, whatever. But for some reason, I immediately started thinking about it's hoodie season. And nobody can do a hoodie better than our friends at Gorb. You've got to check them out, GHORBH.com. They're comfortable. They're stylish. There's all kinds of designs, all kinds of colors. They've got them for men, for women, for kids. Gorb is absolutely the place to go. Plus, you're going to get a constant reminder that in life, you've only got 2 choices. You can either get hungry or you can be hungry. Hoodie season is here. You got to check it out, gorb.com, GHORBH.com.
Yeah, I also love that they have that lightweight September hoodie and then the heavy, that hockey sweater we all have for November. Oh, man, I can't wait.
It's good stuff. And now, look, I realize I'm saying that. It was like 99 heat index today.
Yeah, really?
But,
yeah.
But it's coming.
It is coming. All right, guys, let's talk about the playoffs here. We discussed our division winners, our individual award winners. Give me your AFC wildcard weekend games and the winners here.
I have the number 3 seed Steelers beating the 6 Bengals and the 4 Titans over the 5 Jags. I got my home teams winning there.
I have Chiefs over Raiders, and I have Chargers over Colts, unfortunately.
I have Pats over Texans and Steelers over Titans.
I have the Steelers beating the Chargers, and I've got the Texans upsetting the Raiders in the wild card weekend here. So NFC wild card, what do you have there?
I have my Rams over Lions as the 3-6 matchup, and then getting payback for the Minnesota Miracle. I have the Saints finishing the game this time over the Vikings as the 5 seed on the road.
I have Saints over Falcons, and I have Eagles over Packers.
Go Birds.
I have Go Birds over Falcons and Vikings over Panthers.
I have the Eagles beating the Vikings, and I have the Saints beating the Packers and wild card. So we're kind of all over the place with the wild card. Just before we continue, anything like super head scratching to anybody at this point?
I don't understand how you guys think the Texans are a playoff team, but that's my head scratcher. That's from a while ago, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I look at what they can do defensively. I realize they were banged up last year.
Yep.
Like they've got a really sneaky good defense that we just forget about.
Honey Badger's going to change things on already a good defense. He makes you even immensely better. I don't love the offense, I guess.
I just want to put this out here. If JJ Watt comes back healthy, and I know that that's a stretch at this point, but if he does, if he's healthy, I think that JJ Watt is for that defensive unit, or at least the defensive front seven, what Lane Johnson is for the Eagles offensive line.
Careful.
Realistically,
I understand.
You know what I mean?
You're not wrong.
Lane's in there. They win. He comes out because of the suspension. They can't win a game, and then he comes back, and they're the best offensive line in the NFL. And I think JJ has that type of power. You're right. Honey Badger is awesome. And then you go to the offense. They have enough weapons that if Deshaun Watson comes back and plays the way he was playing, I think they're right back in this. As a team. Hopkins is the truth. You guys are higher on Lamar Miller than any of us. And I just think that Deshaun Watson is a special type player if he comes back healthy and can give you that.
Yeah, I don't feel like he's going to produce at the rate that he was.
No,
insane.
But that's ridiculous.
He's done his entire football career is win. Yeah. So, I mean, what reason is there to believe at this point that, that's not possible to continue? So,
listen,
we'll obviously see.
Dabo Swinney said he was Michael Jordan of football, so I gotta believe it.
You don't have to believe it.
I mean, if he said he was a LeBron of football, then I'd get nuts. But let's be serious here.
Oh, all my goodness.
AFC divisional games and winners. What do we got?
I have an upset in Foxborough. I have the number 4 seeded Titans taking out the Patriots.
Wow.
I also have,
hold on. I guess my second one, right?
Yeah, you should.
I shocked the world with that one and just mic dropped, apparently. I then have the Chargers taking care of Pittsburgh out in LA.
Not only am I going to agree that there's an upset in Foxborough, but I'm going to further anger you by saying it's the Texans who knocked them off, and then I also have the Jaguars beating the Steelers.
I have the Jags over the Pats in Jacksonville, so I don't know how they're playing in Foxborough when they're traveling to Jacksonville. But I have the Jags over the Pats, and then I have the Chargers over the Steelers.
I have Steelers over Chiefs, and I have Chargers over Patriots.
All right, so the NFC side, how do we see that playing out?
I have the number 1 seeded Eagles over the 5 seeded Saints, and I've got number 2 Atlanta over number 3 the LA Rams.
I have the number 2 Rams over the Eagles, and then I have the number 1 Saints over the Vikings.
Why was that giggles? Why giggles?
Because I just love that, we're throwing out our seeds, but we're just contradictory to everything else that the person before us is saying.
Right.
No, but I believe that New Orleans avenges last year's in this round, and it gets to be in New Orleans. So,
I've got the Eagles over the Falcons again in the divisional round, and I've got the Rams over the Saints. So, am I correct in hearing that only one of us has the Pats in the championship round now?
Yes.
Wow. Well, that would certainly be a change of scenery over the last couple of years.
What is? I don't think I'm mistaken. That's 8 straight years, right? That he's been in the AFC Championship.
Crazy.
And I say he. Tom's the only person that matters.
It seems like 17 straight years, to be honest with you.
It does.
Yeah, I have Rams over Eagles and Vikings over Saints.
All right, so conference title game and winners. How do we see it playing out?
I have the Los Angeles Chargers getting to the Super Bowl for just the second time in history of their franchise over the Tennessee Titans. And then the NFC Championship, I firmly believe this game will go to wherever the home team is. And just the way my tiebreaker worked out, because I do have both teams at 13-3, I have the Eagles over the Falcons. But if the game's in Atlanta, I would pick the Falcons.
I have the Chargers over the Jags. Again, Chargers getting the Super Bowl. And I have Saints over Rams.
I've got the Jaguars beating the Texans for the Jaguars to head to the Super Bowl. And then I've got the Eagles beating the Rams on the road to head to the Super Bowl for a second straight year.
Jaguars Texans, that old throwback AFC matchup. Remember that they were like commonplace in the 70s, right?
Yeah, well,
like,
I mean,
it was like every year. It was like Cowboys Niners and Jags Texans every year. I remember that.
yeah.
All the way. I was just a little bitty boy back then. I have Chargers over the Steelers, and I have Rams over the Vikings.
So,
All right,
Deal's going all LA Super Bowl, huh?
This is the all LA Super Bowl, sir.
Nice.
All right, so give us your Super Bowl 53 official matchup and your winner.
All LA Super Bowl, Rams over Chargers.
Jared Goff getting the ring, huh?
Jared Goff.
Do you think they could like get to the league and say, can we just play it here instead of flying to Atlanta?
They should. I mean, there's not a good reason. They're like, hey, all of our fans are here. We're the biggest city in the country.
Well, they don't really have fans. It's
No.
LA.
But it's all of their fans.
That's true.
Listen.
All 12 of them.
Chick-fil-A ain't even going to be open.
Why are they going to Atlanta
So
for?
why are you going to Atlanta?
Yeah.
I do. First off, I'll say this about just the way things worked out for me. I think it's cool that in the second straight year of the NFC Championship game, the loser would have been able to play the Super Bowl in their home stadium, and I had them lose. But anyways, I do actually have the Eagles winning the Super Bowl over the Chargers.
I love as I was going through this, I love the way this plays out because you have an aging Drew Brees and the New Orleans Saints playing against the San Diego Chargers. I know. I said it on purpose. Against the Los Angeles Chargers, but the San Diego Chargers are the team that drafted him. And they got rid of him for Phillip Rivers. And now a full 14 years later, we get to see Drew Brees versus the Chargers in the Super Bowl against Phillip Rivers. And I have Drew Brees and the Saints coming out on top.
I've got the Eagles beating the Jags. Look, I know it sounds like a homer kind of thing. I look at the way that they've improved on their roster construction from last year, added to the core, even with some changes to their offensive coaching staff. I just don't see a big drop off here. I think that they play in a division that it'll benefit them, that even if they do start a little bit slow, they'll still be able to maintain a playoff spot with it. That's why I had them winning some tough road games in the playoffs, but I have them repeating. I think we're going to have a repeat champion. So who do we have as Super Bowl MVP with all of that in mind?
In my fantastic scenario, I have Drew Brees getting the MVP and then pulling a John Elway, pulling a Peyton Manning, and just riding off into the sunset as world champ and Super Bowl MVP.
I don't think he'd walk away still. I really don't.
Really? Ooh, I think if he gets two and cements his legacy.
I don't think he's close, man. He's still you can tell he's still so hungry to play. Anyways, that wasn't the question. I can totally see your scenario, but I don't think he'd walk away. I think he'd try to go back to that. Seems the way he's wired to me. I'm going with Jay Ajayi. I'm all in on this guy this year. I think if the Eagles were to win that game, they'd have to pound it, keep the ball out of that offense's hands. Like I said, we had Phillip Rivers as the MVP in my scenario, so they're going to have to keep the ball away from him. And just kind of keeping my trend of cool stats, that would make the fourth consecutive year that the NFL MVP lost the Super Bowl with Phillip Rivers. So throwing that knowledge down at you guys. But I have Jay Ajayi. I think he'd be over 100 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground and win the MVP there.
I went with Carson Wentz. I think that, the opposite of what you're saying, league MVP is finally going to win the Super Bowl and win the MVP just because, he's the distributor in that offense. So, logic would tell you that, he's going to be the guy that's in line to win that award. I just think that having gone through what he did last year, playing at the level that he did, a lot of guys would just fall back a little bit, but I just think that he's just unbelievably motivated by it. And I think we're going to see that all season long out of him.
Gosh, the year of Carson, dude.
I picked Mr. Jared Goff, who was drafted just ahead of Carson, and I picked him to be our Super Bowl MVP.
All right.
I want to be so mad at you two and be like, we're trying to do this and be as little Homer as possible, but it sucks that it's just not Homer. Like,
they won the Super Bowl.
They won the Super Bowl and got better. Like, that could absolutely happen. Like, obviously I didn't pick it, but like, I want to be like, you guys stink for being Homers, but it's not even like a Homer thing. It infuriates me.
Well, and I said it too. Like, I'd be a lot more skittish on it if the rest of their division was better. I just think that they can afford to stumble a little bit here and there and still win their division. And I could be wrong. A team could come out of there and surprise me. But right now, I just don't see it. Whereas like an NFC South team, that's going to be a dogfight all year.
Yeah.
Absolutely all year. So
and it's one of those things where like even if you stumble, it's kind of like the way the Seahawks were a couple of years ago. Like you can stumble to 10-6, 11-5. If you're in the playoffs, then you're just the scariest team once you're there. So it's just get there, and then the Eagles are in prime position.
All right, guys. So this is how I wanted to wrap this up tonight, because this is our last official, off-season-ish podcast. So we like to do this from time to time. We like to make a wild prediction. So give me a wild prediction for anything in the NFL for 2018 that you think is a long shot to happen, but you wouldn't be totally surprised.
I've been struggling with this all day. I said I didn't have one, and I'm going to cop out and just say I've already given you two. I said David Johnson's going to have a top 10 season all time, and I said Khalil Mack's going to lead the league in sacks for the Colts. So I'm just going to rest on my laurels over the last hour.
I already said that it's going to be the first ever one city Super Bowl. So I think that's pretty big. So I'm gonna give you one. Not only is it going to be the first ever all one city Super Bowl, it's going to be the first time ever in fantasy football history the Super Bowl is going to have 2 quarterback ones, 2 running back ones, and 2 wide receiver ones for the entire 2018 fantasy football season. It's never happened before. I looked all the way back to the early 90s, 1990, when fantasy football really took over. 2004 was close with T.O., Westbrook, McNabb, Corey Dillon. Brady was number 11. 2002 was close with Charlie Garner, Rich Gannon, and Jerry Rice, all from Oakland, all top 10. The other team didn't have any. Tampa Bay didn't have any in the top 10. There's been a couple seasons it's been close, but this is going to be the first time ever with 2 quarterback ones, 2 wide receiver ones, and 2 running back ones, all playing in the Super Bowl against each other.
I thought I'm gonna go here first because I'm gonna wrap up, and I don't want to make my voice go for the entire finish of the podcast here. So I have 2, and I'm gonna give you the first one, and I actually believe this first one. And I feel convinced of it. I believe that we are going to have a new NFL single-season sack leader in Joey Bosa. I think he's going to have 24 sacks this season for the Chargers. I just look at that defensive makeup. Their secondary is really, really good. Their linebackers, their defensive front, their edge rushers are really good as well. And like I said before, I don't think Joey Bosa has even scratched the surface on what he's going to be able to do in that defense yet. They're still trying to figure that all out. I think they're going to be a really, really good unit this year. I've got them for 24 sacks. Now, my even more insane one, and I don't as much believe this one, but I think that we're going to go into week 17 with 2 teams with 0 wins, and both of those teams are going to get their first win in week 17. I believe it for sure on one. The Bills are going to get their first win week 17, and the Cardinals are going to get their first win in week 17.
Wow.
Yes.
I have the Cardinals as an 8-8 team.
Listen, I had the Cardinals in my actual predictions as a 4-win team, my original predictions, but when I went back through today, I don't know. Like my gut still tells me that there's still too many good, solid veteran players on there for that to happen. But their schedule is going to be rough this year. So I don't know. It's a really crazy one. So that's why I wrestled between how crazy I wanted to get, but take it for what it is.
My crazy prediction goes back to records and stuff like that. And once I played it all out and I'm looking at it and I feel how I feel about this being top heavy, I think that we're going to have a record of 16 teams with 10 wins or more. And on top of that, just to show you the difference of where I see the league is right now, I have 13 teams with 5 wins or less. I think there are very few middle-of-the-pack teams. Congratulations, the Colts, the Jets are middle-of-the-pack teams at this point. I think they're teams on the rise but haven't done enough. But I think that we are in a league right now where we have some very, very good teams and we have some very, very poor teams. So I'm going to hit you with 16 10-win teams and 13 teams with less than 5 or less wins.
All right. Well, hey, listen, that is going to do it for our final podcast before the NFL season really kicks off here. Next Tuesday, when we talk to you, we will be previewing week 1 of the NFL season. Week 1 fantasy preview coming up next week. No more off-season talk. No more speculation. We're getting right down and dirty into it. Check us out on social media, facebook.com/footballgoons. We are at Football Goons on the Twitter and right here on our YouTube channel. We appreciate all the comments that have been coming across, all the views. You can like, you can comment, you could subscribe, you could share the videos here on YouTube. Share our content on social media. As I mentioned earlier, we are really building this thing from the ground up. So we value every time that somebody shares our stuff with somebody else. Make sure you check out footballgoons.com as well. If you've got fantasy drafts coming up, you're going to want to check out our fantasy rankings. They're sortable. They're downloadable. You can pull them down, take them with you to your draft. You could sort them by goon, by whatever deviation you feel like you want to do by position. They are all there, footballgoons.com. We'll also have our articles up all season long on our goons and ghosts for each and every week, as well as a high-quality daily fantasy play for you there as well. We'll catch you guys next time.